Yeah, Chad, is the feed ready?
She's asking if you guys are ready.
Is the video?
Order, he's coming.
Yes. Calling the Town of Timnath Town Council meeting for June 28th to order. Mayor Mark Sukup.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Brett Hansen.
Here.
Councilmember Lisa Lake.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Oxmacher.
Present.
Councilmember Luke Wagner.
Here.
Lisa, do we have any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Melissa, do we have any public comments? No. Okay, great. Consent agenda. I know what I wanted. And this can be Lisa or Matt. In the consent agenda, there's a approval of the Copier lease, and there's no bid. I understand why there's not, but I think just for purposes of the record, let's put why this doesn't have a bid, whereas everything else that we do does have a bid.
Okay, sure. We are piggybacking off of the state of Colorado bid. So the state of Colorado actually performed a bid, and we're piggybacking off of their pricing per our purchasing policy. That's allowable.
Okay, great. Okay, any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as prepared, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Does any council person have anything they'd like to bring up?
I'll just make a quick comment. We had the first movie night activity for the summer a couple weeks ago. It looked like it was pretty well attended, a couple hundred people there by my rough count, and looked like the families were all having a lot of fun, playing some lawn games before the movie, and seemed to be a good time.
Great, thanks. And in fact, Bill, thanks for your comments on the magazine identifying the movie nights and that stuff. So thank you. Finance report. Lisa, do you have anything more that you'd like to add?
I don't.
Okay. Engineering, Don Toronto, do you have anything more you'd like to add? Community development report, Matt Blakely, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay. Terry Jones, Police Chief Jones, do you have anything you'd like to add? No, sir. Okay. All right. That takes us to resolution number 30, series 2022, resolution approving 4800 Goodman site paving. Don Toronto.
Thank you, Mayor. We are attempting to finish this project, which has been a challenge at best. And so was supposed to be finished by September, October of last year. We got caught up in everything from COVID to the supply chain issues, and that is continuing. And I will suggest to you that I hope this is the last time I'm coming to you for some additional dollars. When we did the budget for last year, we truly thought we had a handle on where the numbers were going to be, but we obviously did not. And so the amount of increase in the construction market over the last, I'm going to say 10 months has been unprecedented, and we have not been able to keep up with it. However, after saying that, I think we've got bids. We've got everything we can do right now to get a final number. And I do not believe I'll be coming back to you, barring any catastrophic circumstances, to ask for any more money. That is hat in hand, saying, do you have any questions? I'm going to try to answer them the best I can.
Thanks. Council, any questions or comments? Brett.
This one's for Lisa there. So we're asking for an additional $180,000 out of the budget. Just so I have a rough idea, what pot of money is that coming from?
It will either come from the TDA loan proceeds or unrestricted. The TDA loan proceeds are spent based on projects as they're completed, and we projected those would be spent down this year. I'm comfortable with it coming out of either pot money.
Okay, so this was a TDA eligible project.
Yes, it
Okay.
is. Mhm.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Luke.
I guess as a new council member, how do we know where projects are projected to be over? Is there something that comes forward? So again, I'm new to this process. So being over 180,000, I just didn't know that this was coming after we just approved the trail. And so, when I read the finance report, it sounded like we were on target for a lot of stuff. So how do we know, and how do citizens know where we stand on our budgets for a lot of these projects?
So we're just beginning the budget process now, and what we'll do is we'll provide a revised 2020 projection. And if we need to ask for an additional appropriation, we'll do that at that time. Once
Did you
we
mean
get
2021?
22 for this year.
You said you're going to ask for revised 2020 projection.
2022, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, 2022 projection. So once we finalize that, it'll determine whether we need to ask for a supplemental appropriation. It'll depend on our entire general fund budget and what's under, what's over, what amount we'll ask for. Some of the Pooter Trail realignment, those will come out of park impact fees. So we have restricted funds available for those. This one will come out of either unrestricted or the TDA loan proceeds. So to answer your question, you'll see that in summary at the August work session, and then you'll vote to adopt a supplemental appropriation either in September or October if needed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I didn't hear your question as well as I should have too. And if they answered it, then great. But I thought I heard, how come we didn't anticipate this 180 earlier than today? Is that what you were asking or not?
Yeah, that's part of the question. I think
Okay.
I understand supply chain, but as a council member, this is the first time I've heard of something like this. So I want to make sure I'm well informed and residents are informed. And so I just want to make sure stuff like this is out there to the public as well as council members.
Yep.
Don, if you'd like to comment, go ahead.
Sure. I'll try anyhow. At the time we did the budget, obviously that was last year, and we hadn't bid it. And so we went through the process of bidding, got the bids very recently, and we had 3 bids. And in the write-up, we told you went from X to Y. And this was the lowest bid we got by a competent contractor. It is more than we expected, but everything I've seen in the market for the last 10 months has been more than anybody has expected. That's no excuse. I'm just stating the fact. Sure.
So, okay, did that answer your question, Luke? Okay, does any councilperson have any others? Okay, could I have a motion to approve the resolution number 30, series 2022?
I move to approve the installation of concrete paving at 4800 Goodman for the Public Works Facility.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, resolution number 30, series 2022, resolution approving 4800 Goodman site paving was approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, so listen, hold out, Chad. I know what, I think I'm doing it right, but just a second, it's going to sound like I'm not at the start. So what I think we'll do is discuss resolution number 31, series 2022, ordinance number 8, 2022, ordinance number 9, 2022, ordinance number 10, 2022, and resolution number 32, series 2022, because they're all so homogeneous that I think it makes more sense to hear them all. Now, council, we will be separately voting and separately having public hearings on each one of these, but I think it just will flow better and it makes more sense to put this, all of them in one spot, and you explain it to us, Chad. So, you know, we read pretty much there's stuff there, and I'm sure people here, guys and gals, will have questions. But once you add anything that you think is informative or would change that you have on the write-up.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Let me share my screen real quick. Sorry, 1 second here. All right, is everyone seeing that on their screen up there?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we'll start with the Dralee annexation. This is an ordinance approving the annexation proposal for the property referred to as Dralee Farm. The property is currently owned by the Dralee James Trust, and the applicant is Hartford Homes, represented by Dave Thorpe and Savannah Benedict Welsh from Norris Design. Petition was brought forth to the town council for substantial compliance on April 26, 2022. Following your approval, we noticed for today's public hearing for 4 consecutive weeks in the Coloradan, along with the town's requirements for residents within 500 feet of that boundary. So the subject property is located at the northwest corner of 3 Bell Parkway and River Pass Road. The boundary, roughly 3/4 of the property's boundary, is immediately adjacent to the town's property, meeting the 1/6 contiguity requirement for the annexation, represented by the hatch marks on the north property line, east and south. The annexation will consist of 2 parcels, as you see here, totaling in roughly 33 acres. The right-of-way along 3 Bell Parkway and River Pass Road has been dedicated to the town. Property is currently located in unincorporated Larimer County and falls within the town's GMA, Growth Management Area. Parcels are designated as low-density residential in our comp plan. The applicant is proposing single-family detached dwellings, which is an allowable use within that designation. And the annexation for this and the petition have been reviewed against the state statute and the Timnath Land Use Code. So then with the annexation comes the zoning. The applicant is requesting to amend the town's zoning map for this property to R2 single-family residential, conforming to the comprehensive plan designation. This zoning designation allows for a maximum density of 4 units per acre and is compatible with adjacent uses. The next item is the Dralee Pd Overlay. This is a plan development overlay application to make modifications to dimensional standards in our land use code for single-family residential zoning district. The intent of the overlay is to provide more flexibility and create a walkable, compact product type that would be compatible to the trail side development to the north. The changes to these PD overlay are for the entire property. Generally, the overlay is asking for relief on lot sizes and setbacks. Some of those changes, which I highlighted in the packet, are to reduce the front yard easement from 14 feet to 12, increase the maximum impervious lot coverage from 60% to 80%, reduce side yard setbacks from 7 feet to 5 feet, Additionally, with this PD overlay, they are working to have both front-loaded and rear-loaded product types. Each of those have separate changes in this PD overlay for that, including reduced lot sizes from 6,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet, reducing the lot width from 54 feet to 45, reducing the front yard garage setback from 22 to 20. And for the rear-loaded lots, they are proposing to reduce lot sizes from 6,000 square feet down to 2,400 square feet, and reducing lot width from 54 to 30 feet, and the frontage 35 to 30 feet. These changes have been reviewed by referral agencies impacted by the development, and their comments have been addressed. This is just another item here just showing kind of how those PD overlay, those setbacks and different standards would work within that development. Finally, we have the Dralee sketch plan. This is a resolution for a future land division of the of Dralee. I apologize. This is a conceptual document with the first step within the major subdivision process, outlining the potential configuration of the development as well as the proposed density. As you can see, the initial access points to the subdivision are proposed from the Trailside neighborhood to the north and from River Pass Road to the south. There was a comment during Planning Commission about whether or not there could be access from Three Bell. That would not meet the town's spacing requirements for this area. Sketch plan does include the potential for additional access points to the west if it were to be developed in the future. Application is also including predetermined open space locations in a neighborhood park to provide, and also to provide a continuation of the Pooter Trail on the east portion of the property. This is the conceptual lotting plan for the development. This is just for reference only, as the project will still need to go through the platting and site plan process. But this application is proposing 111 single-family detached lots conforming to the maximum density allowed for R2 zoning district. The density per gross area would be 3.3 dwelling units per acre. And the property lies within the Fort Collins Loveland Water District service area. And this proposed density meets their master plan for this area and has been supported by the district. There was a neighborhood meeting requirement for this application. The meeting was held on April 28th at the Timnath Town Center in an open house format. The purpose for this meeting is to gather feedback and concerns from surrounding residents on the sketch plan. There were 4 individuals present, and their comments were included in the observation report found in your packet. Members of the Planning Commission asked that we see response to those questions that we provided. So the applicant was able to provide those answers, and we uploaded that as well. With this project during Planning Commission, there was a question about the drainage within the lot and how that would work. I believe Don has a comment on their narrative on how they spoke on the drainage.
Thank you, Chad. Yeah, like Chad said, there's been some questions or at least comments regarding the impacts of this Dralee project, storm drainage wise, on the Bruner Farm south of it. And I'll be very simple with this. The Bruner Farm project was designed per the town's criteria, just like the Dralee project will be designed per the town's criteria. The Bruner Farm had to allow for historical 100-year flows because it was not developed yet. And so by doing that, once Dralee is developed per town criteria, the Bruner Farm will see noticeably smaller amounts of flow during a 100-year event than they would today. So that's as simple as I can make it. The development of this property under town criteria will make storm drainage situation for Bruner Farm better than it is today.
Thanks, Don. Again, items were reviewed against the Colorado State Statute, Timnath Land Use Code, and the Timnath Comprehensive Plan. Staff is recommending approval of the Dralee Annexation Zoning Map Amendment, PD Overlay, and Sketch Plan. With that, I will turn it over to Savannah.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, great. All right. My name is Savannah Benedict Welch with Norris Design, here representing the applicant team this evening. I also have a few folks with me this evening also representing the applicant team, including Wendy Cudmore with Hartford Homes and David Thorpe with Hartford Homes as well, and also Ryan McBreen with Norris Design. So Chad did a great job outlining the property that we are discussing this evening. As you can see, it's located directly south of the Trailside development on the edge of Timnath. And as you can see by the agenda, there are several applications before you this evening, one of which is the annexation and zoning for this property. The site, as you can see by this map, is surrounded on 3 sides by the town of Timnath. So we are proposing to annex this property and also zone the property to R2 single family residential, as Chad discussed. It does conform to the Timnath comprehensive plan, allowing for up to 4 dwelling units per acre. We also wanted to really highlight in this presentation that this development really is a lower density extension of the Trailside development directly to the north. Hence why we are proposing the PD overlay that we have before you this evening, that really is a lower density, very similar, aesthetic to the Trailside development, just basically allowing for detached product. So all of the lots are detached, and a lower density development as well. So keep that in mind as we review these items this evening as well. As mentioned, we are proposing the plan development overlay along with the annexation and zoning. This map provides a great rendering of these 2 developments and really highlights the final aesthetic of this site, which will be an extension of the Trailside development to the north. There will be access from the roundabout directly to the north on the south end of the Trailside development. And we also are proposing smaller home lot sizes than the underlying zoning. So as you'll see by the documentation, as well as, as Chad's presentation, the idea is to follow the underlying zoning, but to allow for smaller lot sizes in order to allow for more open space and a greater opportunity for residents to gather and have a greater sense of community. As Chad mentioned, we also have before you this evening the sketch plan. I won't go into great detail here because it's really just a conceptual plan. It's the first stage of our subdivision and the preliminary plat, which is the next phase after this. But as you can see, there are proposed extensions of the road from the north and south, as well as potential extensions of the road system to the west as well. We also wanted to take a moment to share with you the concept plan. As Chad mentioned, this is certainly conceptual at this stage. This could change over time as we delve into the next phase of this development. But as you can see, we have a wonderful park in the center of the development that will really be a focal point for the residents. There's also a preserved historic barn, the Dralee barn, that we are planning to preserve, and that will really be a wonderful, potentially a gathering place. That's still under analysis, but it will drive the aesthetic of the park as well. We are also proposing 2 lot types with this development, including an alley loaded product, which is the darker brown lots that you see on the northeast corner of the development. And then the remainder is the front loaded single family homes that have an average of about 6,000 square feet. We also wanted to highlight the barn. So as you can see by this wonderful photo, the barn will be preserved on the site, and I think will be a really great amenity for the development and really provide a great potentially a great gathering space, either adjacent to or within. It's a historic barn. It was built in the late 1800s, and it will be central to the development. So, I think that the current owners are excited that we're keeping the barn because it will really bring a wonderful amenity to the development. We are also proposing an enhanced park, as mentioned. It's larger than the requirements, and we really are working hard to make that a great amenity for the site as well. Also, we wanted to highlight the enhanced building architecture for this development. The homes will have a very similar quality to Trailside, as mentioned. And actually, this very next slide provides some images of the proposed architectural character. And it will, as mentioned, will be similar to Trailside. Each home will have its own unique style, and it will certainly have a great, aesthetic for the community. And we hope that in the future will be a great community for the residents to enjoy. And if you have any questions for us, we're certainly happy to answer them.
Council? Did you have one, Brett? Okay.
First off, I wanted to thank you for looking at keeping in the barn there. I think that shows a degree of creativity and it adds some character. So it's not just the same,
Absolutely.
general design. And I know that you're still doing some structural analysis and assessing its capabilities. I was just curious if you had any ideas as possible uses for it.
Well, Wendy, would you?
Just to give us a little bit of a preview of what you have in mind.
She's been working on the analysis with the structural engineer, and we have some.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Wendy Cudmore with Hartford Homes. And to answer your question, we hired a structural engineering firm, Penn Engineering, to come out and do an analysis. Norris Design has provided some options for the park that are very exciting. We toured that along with the family. We are looking at the option, if it's structurally sound, our owner, Landon, is interested in using the barn as an amenity with an interior use. We're still in the process of that. That is our hope. The barn will remain on the property, whether it can be used internally or not. But we have some great ideas and some folks that we're thinking of partnering. We've got a playground element that will be proposed, a mix of some native and turf uses for the area, and the proposed designs that I've seen so far are very exciting. So it is a larger amenity than what might be required for the size of a neighborhood. So we want to knock it out of the park and see what we can do. So it's a very interesting structure. There's a milk shed that's on the back side of this that we also evaluated. It's painted red as well. So we're evaluating both of those, but we're going through all of the normal processes to make sure that the structure will be safe for residents and those that would attend. So that's our primary goal. But we are very hopeful. Cross your fingers.
Okay. Do you have an idea of when all that analysis might be complete?
So,
We're talking a year, 3 years?
No. We walked the site already. I've actually received the report from our structural engineer. The next step would be to do an additional analysis on materials inside the building. And so I need to arrange that. But we're getting plans that we will propose along with our subdivision application. And so it's our intent to construct it along with the community. So it could be in phases depending on the amount of interior work that would need to be done. Could we use it? But the intent is to move it along. Landon is very excited, and we are hopeful that we can come up with a great use for it. I think it has great character on the outside, but we'll see if we can get folks in it. But safety first. So we're going through all of our due diligence to make sure that that can happen.
Okay, thank you. Then I have a couple of questions for staff. I don't know if now's.
Let's wait for staff in just a second.
Great.
Anything more to them? Go ahead, Lisa.
I just have, sorry, it'll be a quick question again about the barn, because we got a lot of public, I heard a lot of public feedback about wanting to be able to use that. And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that it would be something that would be available for all residents within the town of Timnath, not just that neighborhood. Is that correct?
Yes, it is our intent for it to be a metropolitan public amenity. And so it's our intent that, yes, it's a
Okay.
public facility.
Perfect. I know there's one in like Bucking Horse and Fort Collins that I think only the residents of Bucking Horse can use. So this would be great if the whole town could.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
think it speaks to some of the history of the area. So
Great. Thank you.
absolutely.
Sorry, Dave Thorpe with Hartford Homes. Yeah, the intent is to have a metro district and not an HOA, just a metropolitan district in the same way that Trailside's set up. So just like the splash pad in the park and Trailside, it's technically a public facility. The metro district would probably operate it. The goal would be potentially to make it like a picnic shelter potentially, or more. We just genuinely don't know yet. So then how that gets operated, is it locked most of the time? Is it not locked? You know, we don't exactly know yet. So we're still feeling it out, but the metro district would be the operating entity.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Rob.
I have a question as it relates to the Pooter Trail. It's my understanding that that would be incorporated along 3 Bell along the, was that eastern edge? Is that correct?
In the interim, yes, it's our understanding that that could potentially change over time. I believe the plans are for it to actually go through the property to the west of this site. But currently that property is not available for the trail. So currently, yes, it will be along the eastern edge of the site.
Yep. Robert, this proposal will have the 10-foot trail along 3 Bell to continue from Trailside to the north where it is now. But Savannah is correct. The ultimate location is through what's called the Bucklighter property to the west of this. It would kind of tie in through there. That's whenever that actually develops. So we will at least have the 10-foot trail along 3 Bell down to the intersection of River Pass with this development.
Okay, I appreciate that. Certainly any trail is better than no trail. My thought is, as it runs along 3 Bell, that doesn't necessarily stay with the character of the Pooter Trail. And certainly any trail is better than none, but one of my questions was, is there any opportunity to better integrate that trail into the community and make it, you know, part of it as opposed to something that runs alongside of it?
That's certainly, you know, I think that the idea with it being along 3 Bell is that it ties in from the north, because right now I believe the trail is along 3 Bell on the north end. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
So it would, you know, it would just be easier to connect at that location. But as, you know, as Kevin mentioned, that may change in the future once the property to the west develops.
Yeah. Currently the trail does run on 3 Bell, and then the interim right now is it runs along the north side of River Pass down through the community park. So for right now, just to kind of meet A to B, you know, staff feels that it, you know, still running along 3 Bell just to get to that intersection for this period of time. We'll still work to run it through the neighborhood. Might not, then it might throw folks off of the Pooter River Trail just to get to a different point. But like I mentioned, the Bucklighter property to the west is the ultimate property if and when that ever develops, or if properties to the west of that along 3F decide to develop to where we could actually get it closer to the river down in that corridor. That's when we would look at that different alignment, but just to for about the quarter of a mile to tie it from the intersection of Saddlehorn down to the intersection of 3 Bell and River Pass. That's where we kind of felt to keep it in the same alignment was probably the best option.
Okay, thank you.
Just to chime in briefly on that too, we are planning on trails for Saddlehorn over to the north-south connection at the roundabout, and then trails through the Dralee property. So that north-south green strip that lines up with River Pass Road, that would also have a path through it. So residents and visitors could certainly move through the community that way.
Appreciate that. Since you brought up the property to the west, I notice here that Farson extension, the street is not incorporated into this community. Was that part of the original streets plan, or are we in some way essentially shifting that responsibility to a future property owner?
No. So if you kind of look at the south side of this graphic where Farson is, half of it is, it starts on half of this property. So with how Farson is, it actually lies right on the center line of the two properties. So without having the right of way from Bucklighter, we couldn't align that intersection at this time. So it would be almost impossible to put the road from Farson north with this development, just because we don't have the right of way for it. So they will be incorporating a portion of that road on their development in that south corner there. It will divert into that property. As you kind of see, it kind of dives up to the north. So this property has some responsibility for that extension, but more or less it will then tie into the Bucklighter property if and when they develop more, just because that's when we'll have the right of way to actually complete that road to the north.
I know that we have a separate entrance into the neighborhood there off of was that River Pass?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious why that wasn't incorporated with Farson, why we're putting in a different street when we already have an intersection there. Does that make sense?
It does. And the spacing requirements associated with what you see are per town standards. The other north-south road, which we ultimately think will be when Bucklighter actually develops, we're just trying to pave, no pun intended, pave the way to allow that in the future. And so it would have made little sense to try to make that intersection that they're going to build weave through and then into, because it doesn't line up. The other one lines up with the Bruner Farm intersection.
And then Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when Trailside was developed, there is a collector stub to the south, more or less near the word, the A in Trailside, with the intent to connect to Farson. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's other connections through there. Yeah, when Trailside was done, there's a connection out through the Bucklighter property that will then come down to this intersection down there. So there's actually multiple options for the development. The Dralee property on their north side is doing an east-west stub. The one on the south, and then from Trailside on the very north, almost where Dave was talking about where the label for Trailside is, there's a connection down. Just where property lines lined up and roads lined up didn't work. The Trailside development actually, with the intersection of Saddlehorn, that one was actually easier for them to do at that one time, because the property line for what was Feldman's property was far enough south that the whole right of way fell on the Trailside property, which is why that road was done on that whole entire property. With the splitting of the property lines, that's where it's a little bit more challenging to get that road complete and actually done without the neighboring property at the table with the right of way.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions? I got a quick question, just a curiosity one, is what's the price point on the homes that are going to be in there? I appreciate it's an approximation.
Yeah, I would say between 600 and 800,000 approximately.
600 to 800. So the highest priced will be 800 and the lowest about 600.
Yeah, it's kind of what we're seeing right now with the same product in Trailside. So it's an extent. I mean, Hartford, and I'm going to bend this up, I'm kind of tall. Hartford would build these units, and we were proposing to build the same houses we're building in Trailside. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now over there.
All right, thank you. Yes, Luke.
Are residents of this property going to be able to access the pool of Trailside?
Yes.
Yeah, we're working with our Metro District Council on the best way to include it, but the intent is for this to be branded as Trailside and to be a part of the same metropolitan district one way or another. So it's just the same community extended a little bit further south.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other? Okay, Samantha, thank you very much. Staff, do you have any other comments? Okay, Brett, you had some questions?
Just to verify on the open space, it said it was 20% open space for this property, and that was just for this property, not counting open space with the rest of the development. Okay. And then, I know you talked to John about the stormwater drain, and I know this came up extensively in Planning Commission, and then we did get a little bit of input from the community, so I do want to make sure I do a little bit of due diligence on this. If I'm understanding the report correctly, the detention pond in the southeast corner is meant to catch the runoff. And then when that pond is, if that's discharging at full capacity, that's at the 10-year discharge rate is what I'm understanding from the staff report. Is that correct?
The 10-year historic, correct.
Right, 10-year historic. So that's what you're referring to when Brunner Farms is developed to handle 100-year. They just won't even see 100-year type water from Dralee. They would see 10-year type runoff from Dralee.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And Dralee itself is engineered to handle what level of?
It will be engineered for the town's criteria to be able to handle the 100-year.
Okay.
And then release at the 10-year.
Okay. So the detention pond itself will not overflow unless we exceeded a 100-year type event.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And they have to take, I don't want to get too, but it's 100-year developed.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to take all the 100-year developed numbers and then only release 10-year historic.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Resolution 31, Series 2022 public hearing. Do we have any public comments?
No, sir.
Melissa, is there any for all the rest of them too? So I won't have to keep asking you. Okay. Not that you know of. Okay. All right. So let's go. Resolution number 31, Series 2022. A resolution to make certain findings of fact and declaring eligibility of the proposed annexation of parcels of land to the town of Timnath, Colorado, known as the Dralee annexation. Do I have a motion to approve?
Finding that a complete application was submitted and reviewed in accordance with all applicable Town of Timnath regulations, criteria outlined in Section 1610(2) of the Town of Timnath Land Use Code and CRS 31-12 have been met, I move to recommend approval of the annexations for property known as, I'm thinking this is supposed to say Dralee, to the Town of Timnath as it meets all criteria for annexation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Ordinance number 8, Series 2022, public hearing. We probably have to open the public hearings and stuff. So let's open the public hearing, go backwards for resolution number 31. And if you can open and close it.
The public hearing opens at 6:42 and no comment. So we close it at 6:42.
Okay. And let's do the same with ordinance number 8, Series 2022.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
finding that a complete application was submitted and reviewed.
Wait. We need public hearing first.
Right, but you will need to make a motion on that one before you
Oh,
can
on
go
the
to the
first,
next
okay,
one.
go ahead.
Mayor, finding that a complete application was submitted and reviewed in accordance with all applicable Town of Timnath regulations, criteria outlined in Section 1610(2) of the Town of Timnath Land Use Code and CRS 31-2 have been met. I move to recommend approval of a resolution for annexation for property known as Dralee in the Town of Timnath to the Timnath Town Council as it meets all criteria for annexation.
Okay,
I'll second.
we got a second. Now, do we do the public hearing now or do we do it? Okay, we're all set. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ordinance I got mixed up. We're on ordinance number 8, right? Right.
Yes.
Ordinance number 8, series 2022, an ordinance approving the annexation of the property known as Dralee to the town of Timnath was approved unanimously. Ordinance number 9, series 2022, an ordinance approving the zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as Dralee. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment for the Dralee annexation to the Timnath Town Council, finding that a complete application was submitted and reviewed in accordance with all applicable town regulations. The application conforms with the missions and goals of the Timnath Comprehensive Plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Public hearing.
Public hearing for ordinance number 9 open at 6:44. No public comment, closed at 6:44.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 9?
Was that the motion that I already did, or what do we do? Another?
Yeah, that's the motion. So I don't need it, do I? Okay, so all those in favor of approving ordinance number 9, series 2022, an ordinance approving the zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as Dralee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Ordinance number 9, series 2022, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for the annexation of the property known as Dralee, approved unanimously. Ordinance number 10, series 2022, an ordinance approving the Dralee Plan Development Overlay Amendment. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll open the public hearing
Okay. You want to do
at
that?
6:45.
Okay.
No comment, closed at 6:45.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 10?
I move to recommend approval of the Timnath Landing Planned Development Overlay Amendment to Timnath Town Council with the following conditions. Allow staff to work with the owner applicant to address minor modifications and unresolved comments prior to final signatures.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mayor, but before we vote, can
Sure.
I provide just a little bit of commentary or
Sure.
thoughts on this? I just want to recognize that we have received quite a bit of public comment and concern about the density of development in this area. I think a lot of that comment has come from folks in the Timnath Ranch area. And, I think that what's been expressed is some concern that this density of development does not necessarily maintain the small town character of Timnath and does not necessarily maintain the open feel. I just want to express that feedback is heard. In this case, I believe that the proposed PD overlay makes sense. I believe that this development does provide a nice transition between the existing product and trail side and what's going on in Timnath Ranch. So I think from a development perspective, that makes sense. I'm also excited about the public amenities and the, maintaining the barn there and hopefully making that a public space. I believe that the town residents do get some benefit by approving this PD overlay and also the incorporation of the trail. So I just want to express that in this case, I think this makes a lot of sense, but also that the feedback that we've received from the community also, at least from me, it does not go unnoticed.
Thank you. Now I've lost track over. Okay, good. And it's perfect. All those in favor of ordinance number 10, series 2022, an ordinance approving the Dralee Plan Development Overlay Amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance number 10, series 2022, an ordinance approving the Dralee Plan Development Overlay Amendment, approved unanimously. Resolution number 32, series 2022, a resolution approving the Dralee sketch plan. Would you open public comment?
Public hearing is open at 6:48. No comments, closed at 6:48.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 32?
Move to recommend approval of the Dralee sketch plan to the Timnath Town Council with the following conditions. Allow staff to work with the owner applicant to address minor non-substantive modifications prior to final signatures.
a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Resolution number 32, Series 2022, a resolution approving the Dralee sketch plan was approved unanimously. That takes us to discussion. And this is just a discussion where we give feedback to staff. I'm going to take us up to point, no sense backtracking stuff that we already discussed in our retreat. And we were presented from council 4 different alternatives on incentives that a town can offer: a sales tax incentive, an employment incentive, a facade incentive, and a small business incentive. And during the course of our discussion, it's my understanding, unless you guys correct me, that we felt that a sales tax incentive was something that we would review and look at, and that we gave certain direction to staff, i.e. 35% is what we'd consider as a high of sharing, and that we went no further than, now help me, 5 years or 7? You guys remember?
I recall 33% and
33.
high end of 7 is what I recall.
And you are right at 33. I apologize. In the high end at 7. Okay, are we good with that? Then employment incentive, that there wasn't, we didn't feel that that was something that made sense for the town. Facade easement was not something that we felt made sense for the town. And we never got to, we briefly touched on small business, but we really didn't give it a adequate discussion and no direction to staff. Does everybody agree with my recollection of the facts? So let's discuss small business incentives. And I'm going to start this one out. I'd like to see us do something for a small business incentive and go with that. The ones I have seen in the past in working with other clients in my previous life was loans given to small businesses that had very favorable and easy repayment terms, so that they can go, that these loans are given to only new businesses, and they're at a cap. And I think the highest I ever saw was 25. There may be a 50 in there, and then they go as low as 10 and 5. And so I'm just throwing that out. We banner around and go. I'm not set with anything I just said, other than telling you my observations. And you know what? I think I'll just go start with you, Robert, and we'll just go down the line.
Yeah, I am definitely in favor of implementing a small business incentive program. I know that we have struggled to get a lot of small businesses in Timnath, and I would certainly like us to do what we can to promote that market. I share your perspective, Mayor, that we should make sure that this really is limited to small businesses. You propose that it's a new business. However we define that, I just want to make sure that it really is helping out small businesses, and we're not facilitating chain development and things like that, or at least not incentivizing it or giving the loans. So exactly what the program looks like, I don't know that we need to define all the parameters here today. My suggestion would be, ask the staff to come back with some suggestions and review that. But certainly I see loans as a way to make that happen. I'm also not opposed to other options.
I agree with that. I would love to see what town staff can bring back to us, maybe what other communities have done, and how we might possibly define it. As far as like whether it's a new business, I think that would be, for me, if somebody maybe has a small business in Windsor or Fort Collins, but they're wanting to move it to Timnath, I would be very open to something like that.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I should have defined what I meant by new business. New
To Timnath, okay.
business, yeah.
And then as far as chains, I agree in theory about not having some of those included, but there are a lot of chains that are also franchises, which are independently owned. So I would want to give some of those possibly an opportunity as well.
Yeah, I'm generally in favor of the discussion points here. I would even throw some level of impact fee relief on small businesses. I don't think it's a big deal for the town with the amount of impact fees that would be collected from a small business, but helping them to minimize some of those upfront costs, I think would be impactful to some of those small business owners. And I'm generally in favor of the loan concept. I just would throw a caution out there that we are a relatively small community. There's a fair chance that somebody opening a business here would know people on the council that would be deciding who get these loans. So that would be a dynamic we would need to at least think about how we address, make sure we don't look like we have any kind of conflict of interest and any of that nature going on. Yeah, that's what I have.
Luke?
I echo a lot of comments. I think I want to investigate the Small Business Development Center as well. I don't know much about it, but it says it's, serves Larimer County, so I don't know if we can be involved in that as well. I'd like to see what that looks like and what it means for the town of Timnath to be involved in that type of organization. But I agree with some concerns around the loans, whether that's something we can, keep in a sense, arm's length away or a Chinese firewall, that would be helpful.
Help me out, guys. Who on staff would be in charge of helping develop a small business incentive plan?
Well, since nobody else jumped up, if you want it, it's yours.
Not to throw you out there, but I would think you would be possibly involved in some way.
I would be involved, but it will definitely be a team effort here.
Okay, so Don and Lisa, I think the suggestion was made by council that the details of this, I don't think it's council's responsibility or duty, excuse me, to develop up the details of this. Hold on a second. Excuse me. And so, geez, I'm sorry. What I think we want to do is, you heard what was commented, that consider a loan program, consider the small business incentive. Excuse me. And there was you added something to that too.
No, Luke had mentioned, or Brett, one of them had mentioned the impact, some kind of
Impact fees or any kind of fees that might be assessed.
So take a look at any impact fees that we'd be willing to reduce for a small business. So if you guys could come up with, and maybe give us 2 or 3 alternatives, here, give us that we can then evaluate and come back and give you feedback.
Yep, we'll do that. And Dan Gabon is in the audience tonight, and he's the one who authored from EPS, who authored the original report. We'll reach out to him too.
Great.
His background and understanding of this.
That'd be great. Yeah, if the 3 of you could sit there and develop up that would be excellent. But I think you've got the parameters where we're not necessarily interested in a grant as such, and we're are interested in loans, and we are interested in it considering a discount of impact fee.
Understand?
Does that everybody feel comfortable with that? Okay.
I would just say, I don't know much about how we would do grants or things like that. But without me having a lot of background on that, I would also be open to hearing if that's a viable option.
Yeah, no, we'll open it pretty wide in terms of all the different areas you just talked about. And Dan's very familiar with what other communities are doing and what they have done. And I think we'd bring you back a fairly robust opportunity list. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think I think Robert said it earlier, we want to be known as a small business friendly town. But so we want that, and then take a look at what the other towns have done. And I don't think we have to be on the top of the market, but I don't want us to be in the bottom of the market either. It's in the middle of what other towns are doing for their small businesses.
Understand?
Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, my only comment is, as far as the impact fees go, I think that's something we need to be educated on. I know some communities have reservations about reserving those and precedent that sets. So I just think we probably need to be educated a little more on that.
Yes, any reduction in impact fees
Sure,
have to
Dan.
be backfilled from the general fund, so we have to take that into account.
Lisa, could you repeat that again?
Any impact fees or reduction of, we have to backfill through the general funds. We have to take that into account.
That's just what I was going to say. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Maybe bring us some dollar amounts of some example businesses. So we're talking $5,000 for the town, or are we talking 100,000? So.
Okay. Timeline. I'm going to let you choose your own timeline, Lisa and Dan and Don.
Yeah, we'll come back to you with that, if that's okay.
Okay, as to when you get back to us with a proposal. I mean, not a proposal, but a suggestion, I think, is really what we're looking for. Suggestion on how to develop up or how to enact a town incentive program.
Well, just off the top of my head, I would suggest that give us 2 meetings ahead. Next meeting, we probably can.
I don't think we need to go that quick.
Okay.
My thought is November, which is about when we're doing budgets and stuff. And Lisa, I always take care of you. Don't worry. So, because you're done with the budget process when, Lisa?
We'll have our first work session with council in August, so that's the majority of the heavy lifting. So September.
But when do we?
You don't adopt until December.
December.
Mhm.
Okay. So is November reasonable for you?
That's very reasonable. Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's just shoot for, and not a quote final, because I don't think you have a direction on exactly what final would be, but maybe, 2 or 3 alternatives that we can take a look at and then develop into a final.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Everybody good? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.